Hi students. Now in our programming in C class we are learning about decision making and branching statements, and we have seen in the previous classes that it is possible to execute a segment of a program repeatedly by using the if statement, and this method is quite satisfactory for almost all practical purpose. But when we need to initialize and increment a counter and test its value at an appropriate place in the program for the completion of the loop, we may have to use an alternate method of repeatedly executing a particular part of a program. In some cases, we need such a looping statement to execute a part of a program. A particular statements need to be executed repeatedly based on some conditions, and this condition may be tested by incrementing or decrementing a counter value. For example, suppose we want to calculate the sum of squares of all the integers between 1 and 10. When we write such a program to calculate the sum of squares of all integers between 1 and 10, the program, if we you write the program using the if statement, the program needs to initialize a variable, say a variable n, and then we need to compute the square of n, and then we need to add it to the sum value. Then we have to test the value of n to see whether it is equal to 10 or not. If it is equal to 10, then the program prints the result, or if it is less than 10, then it is incremented by 1 and the control goes back to the to compute the sum again. So in this case, when we use if statement for such a program, it may create a complex loop, as it reduces the readability or understandability of a program, and in such cases we may have to use many go-to statements. And on such occasions where the exact number of repetitions are known, for example in our program, as we have said, in this program we know the loop should be executed for 10 times. So on such cases where the exact number of repetitions are known, there are more convenient methods of looping in C. These looping capabilities enable us to develop concise programs containing repetitive process without the use of go-to statements. In looping, a sequence of statements are executed until some conditions for termination of the loop are satisfied. So a program loop therefore contains of two segments, one the body of the loop and the other the control statement. So when we use looping in a program, the loop contains these two segments. First one is the body of the loop, that means the statements that are contained within the loop, and the other is the control statement. The control statement tests certain conditions and then directs the repeated execution of the statements contained in the body of the loop. So depending on the position of the control statement in a loop, a control structure may be classified either as an entry controlled loop or an exit controlled loop. So in an entry controlled loop, the control conditions are tested before the start of the loop execution. If the conditions are not satisfied, then the body of the loop will not be executed. In case of an exit controlled loop, the test is performed at the end of the body of the loop, and therefore the entire body of the loop will be executed at least for a single time. the body of the loop is executed unconditionally for the first time. Whether the condition becomes false or true, the body of the loop will be executed unconditionally for the first time. The entry controlled and exit controlled loops are known as pre-test and the post-test loops. Entry controlled loop, in that it checks for the condition, and if the condition is true, the body of the loop will be executed. But in exit controlled loop, the body of the loop will be executed first time unconditionally, and then it checks for the condition, and if the condition becomes false, the loop will be exited. So the simplest of all these looping structures in C is the while statement. Let's see the general form of the while statement. While test condition, then inside the curly braces we give the body of the loop. While statement is an entry controlled loop statement. As we said earlier, in an entry controlled loop, the statement, first the control statement is placed, and the control statement is used to check for a condition. So in this while statement, it first checks for the condition, and if the condition is found to be true, the body of the loop will be executed. Otherwise, if the test condition becomes false, the entire body of the loop will not be executed. So the test condition is evaluated, and if the condition is true, the body of the loop is executed. After execution of the body, the test condition is once again evaluated, and if it is true, the body is executed once again, and this process will be repeated until the test condition is found to be a false value. So the statements given within the while loop will be executed until the test condition becomes false. And if finally if the test condition becomes false, the control is transferred out of the loop. The program continues with the statement immediately after the body of the loop. The statements given outside the loop will be executed when the test condition becomes false. And in a while statement, we may have one or more statements in the body of the loop. In the flowchart of the while loop, we see that after initialization, from the entry, it checks for the condition, test condition. If the condition becomes true, then the code inside the body of the while loop will be executed. As we said earlier, the body of the while loop may contain one statement or more than one statements. So only if the condition becomes true, the code inside the body of the while loop will be executed. So the while statement is called an entry controlled loop, pre-test loop. That means the condition is checked before executing the statements of the loop. So if the condition becomes true, the code inside the body of the while loop will be executed, and again it checks for the condition, and once again if the condition is true, again the code inside the body of the while loop will be executed, and this process is repeated. That means the body of the loop, the statements given inside the body of the loop will be executed repeatedly until the condition is found to be a false. When the condition is false, it exits the loop. That means all the body of the loop will be skipped, and then it executes the statements given outside the body of the loop. So let's see an example program using while statement. Here it's a simple program. The first statement, that is the preprocessor directive, we use this statement to include the header files stdio.h. And next one is the int main. We know main indicates the function. The execution of any program starts from the main function, and the main function if the main function returns any value, it should be specified using the return type. Here we specify int as the return type. So this function returns a integer value. As the function returns an integer value, it must be specified as int. If the function does not returns any value, it must be specified as a void type. Here int main of, within that we gave a value. We declared a variable count of data type integer, and we have assigned a value 1 to that variable. Here int count equal to 1. Count is a variable name, and we have declared count as the integer data type, and we assigned a value 1 to the variable count. So now count equal to 1. The next is our looping statement, while count less than or equal to 4. Here we check for the condition while count less than or equal to 4, print %d comma count. That means print the value of count. Count is declared as an integer variable, so we use %d to display the value of the count. As we know, when it checks for the first time count less than or equal to 4, the condition is true for the first time, because count equal to 1. As count value equal to 1, this condition becomes true for the first time. Now as the condition becomes true, the body of the loop will be executed. For the first time, printf %d comma count, it displays the value 1. So for the first time, when the loop executes, the condition becomes true and it executes the statements given inside the loop, and the statement given inside the loop is to print the value of count, and the value of count equal to 1. It prints the value 1. The next statement given inside the loop is count plus plus. As we know, plus plus is a unary operator that is used to increment the value of a variable with 1. So already we have declared count value as 1. We have assigned the value of count to be 1, and now we increment the count value with 1. That means count equal to count plus 1, that is count equal to 2. Now count value becomes 2, and then it checks for the condition. After incrementing the count value, it checks for the condition given inside the while loop. So now count value equal to 2. So 2 less than or equal to 4, condition is again true. So the loop will be executed for the second time, and again the value of count will be displayed for the second time. Now the value of count is 2, so 2 will be displayed. Now again count plus plus, this statement will be executed. Now count value will be incremented with 1, that is equal to count is equal to 3, and then again it checks for the condition while count less than or equal to 4. Now the condition is again true, that means count value is 3, so 3 less than or equal to 4 condition is true, and again the body of loop will be executed. For the third time, the count value will be printed as 3. Again the count value will be incremented, and then checks for the condition 4 less than or equal to 4. The condition is true. Again the loop, the body of the loop will be executed. For the fourth time, it displays the value 4. Again count will be incremented with the statement count plus plus. After incrementing the count value, it again checks for the condition count less than or equal to 4. Now the value of count will be 5. Now 5 less than or equal to condition becomes false, and as the condition becomes false, the entire body of the loop will not be executed anymore. So these statements will not be executed anymore and the control will be transferred to the next statement, return 0. Okay. So the output of our program will be 1, 2, 3, 4 and these values are displayed in a sequential manner as we have not given any Newland character in our display. So these will be displayed in a single line. So this is the working of while statement. If the condition becomes true, the loop body of the loop will be executed. And this process will be repeatedly performed until the condition becomes false. If the condition in the while statement becomes false, then the body of the loop will not be executed anymore. So that this loop is called an entry controlled loop. That means the body of the loop will be executed only if the condition becomes true. Otherwise, the entire body of the loop will not be executed, will be skipped and the control will be transferred to the next statement immediately following the loop, body of the loop. So this is all about the while statement. Next, we shall see another looping statement, the for statement. This is also an entry controlled loop. The for loop it is also an entry controlled loop and it also checks for the condition and only if the condition is true the body of the loop will be executed. But there is a difference in using the for statement. It provides or it facilitates the provision of initialization, condition checking and incrementation or decrementation of the control variable in a single statement. Let's see the general form of usage of for statement. So the general form of the for loop is for initialization, test condition, increment. For inside the bracket, the first part of the for loop is an initialization part. In that we initialize a control variable and then at the second part it checks for the condition. If the condition becomes true, the body of the loop will be executed and then the third part of the for loop, that is the incrementation part, will be done. After incrementing the control variable, it again checks for the condition. If the condition is true, the body of the loop will be again executed. Again the control variable will be incremented and then again checks for the test condition and this process goes on until the condition becomes false. So the execution of the for statement is, first initialization of the control variable is done first. Control variable used in the loop will be initialized first. The initialization may be done using any assignment statements. For example, if the control variable is I, we can initialize I equal to 1. Or if the control variable is count, we can initialize the control variable as count equal to 0. The variables I and count are known as the loop control variables. We can initialize the variable as we need in the program. So first the control variables are initialized, that is done on the first part of the for loop. The value of the control variable is then tested using the test condition. Once the variable is initialized, it is tested with the test condition. The test condition is a relational expression. Maybe it checks for whether I less than 0 or I less than 10 or something like that. It may be a relational expression and that determines when the loop will exit. If the condition is true, the body of the loop is executed. Otherwise, the loop is terminated and execution continues with the statement that immediately follows the loop. Like any other looping statements, It also checks for the condition. If the condition is true, the body of the loop will be executed, otherwise it skips all that entire body of the loop. When the body of the loop is executed, the control is transferred back to the for statement again after evaluating the last statement in the loop. So if the condition is found to be true, the body of the loop will be executed, and after executing the body of the loop, the control is again transferred back to the for statement to check or to increment the value of the control variable, and again it checks for the condition. So after evaluating the last statement in the loop for the first time, now the control variable is incremented using the assignment statement. The incrementation may be like I equal to I plus 1. So this incrementation part will be executed, and again it tests for the condition. If the condition is again satisfied, the body of the loop is again executed. This process continues until the value of the control variable fails to satisfy the test condition. So that is given on the flowchart of the for loop. After initialization, it checks for the condition. If the condition is true, the statement given in the loop, for loop, will be executed, and after executing the statement given in the for loop, it checks, it increments or decrements, that is depending upon the program. Depending upon the program, we may give an increment or decrement value for the control variable. The control variable is incremented or decremented, and then again it checks for the condition. If the condition is true, the statement given in the loop will be executed again. The control variable will be incremented or decremented as given in the incremental part of the for statement. As far as the for statement is considered, as after execution of the body of the loop, the control will be transferred again to the for statement for incrementing or decrementing the control variable. After incrementing the control variable, it checks for the condition, and again if it is true, the loop will be executed, or if it becomes false, the entire loop will be exited to the statement that is given outside the loop. So this is the working of the for statement. Hope it will be clear with an example program for you. See an example program with our preprocessor directive and including our header files, and then we give the main function. Here also we specify int as the return type, and inside the main function we declare a variable int I equal to 0. You know, in the variable declaration statement, we declare a variable I and assign the value 0, and it is declared as an integer value. Now next one is our for statement. See, our for statement contains three parts. As you see in the figure, for statement contains three parts. First one is the initialization part, I equal to 1. Then second one is I less than or equal to 10, that is our condition checking part. And the next one is the incrementation part. So these three parts are included in a for statement. First one is the initialization part, second one is the condition checking, and the third part is the incrementation part. In the first part, that means in executing a for statement, the first part of the for statement will be always executed. That means the control variable I, here I is the control variable, so I will be initialized with 1. So the value of I is 1. Now it checks for the condition I less than or equal to 10. Yes, of course, I value is 1, 1 less than or equal to 10 condition is true. As this condition is true, the body of the loop will be executed. The body of the loop is given as printf %d \n I. The value of I will be displayed using this statement. For the first time, the value of I is 1. So it gives the output as 1. because I value is 1 and the condition I less than or equal to 10, that is 1 less than or equal to 10 condition is also true. So the statement given inside the for loop will be executed and our display will be 1. See, we have given a new line character here. Now after executing this statement, the control will be transferred again to this part, the incremental part of the for loop. Here I plus plus, we have given the incremental part as I plus plus. So the control variable I will be incremented with 1. For the first time I is equal to 1, we have initialized I equal to 1, so our output was 1. For the second time, after executing the body of the loop for the first time, then the control will be transferred to the third part of the for statement. There we have given as I plus plus. So I value will be incremented with 1, that means I equal to I plus 1. So now I value becomes 2. I plus plus, after executing this increment statement, now our I value will be incremented with 1. So now I equal to 2. With I value equal to 2, it checks for the condition I less than or equal to 10. Of course 2 less than or equal to 10 condition is true. So the body of the loop will be executed once again. Now it displays the value of I, that is I equal to 2. It displays the value 2. Again after executing this statement, the control is again transferred to I plus plus. In that I is again incremented with 1. Now I value becomes 3. 3 less than or equal to 10 condition again true, and then it displays the value of I as 3. So this will be repeated until this test condition becomes false. The test condition becomes false only if I value is greater than 10. So now after executing this loop for 10 times, the I value will be incremented to 11. When the I value is incremented to 11, it checks for the condition 11 less than or equal to 10. The condition becomes false. When I value becomes 11, the test condition becomes false, and as the test condition becomes false, the body of the loop will not be executed anymore, and the control will be transferred to the statement given outside the for loop, that is return 0, and the program will be terminated with this. Okay students, hope you understand this. So these were a few looping statements, very important and frequently used looping statements in C programming. So we shall continue with the next class. Thank you.